Hello, everyone. This is Kelly Beard of KarmicTools.com, and this special audio is the introduction to the new Venus cycle in Capricorn. I had a live gathering last night, but the recording was trash, y'all. So I'm up early in the wee hours of the morning, Friday, to record it in a good way. So thank you for your patience. This might take a little longer to get to you, but when it does, at least you'll be able to hear it. So relax wherever you are, open to receive that which is just for you. We always start our circles by unifying it with breath work and grounding ourselves with the breath work. So I invite our benevolent angels and loving ancestors, personal animal guides, and helping spirits to be with us tonight. We each have a powerful invisible team of support, and it's even more potent when we bring them together like this. So deep breath, making that connection above, below, and at the heart. Deep breath in. And hold and release. I want us to start at the heart chakra as I honor the direction of the east and we make the connection to the element of air and the inner wisdom of the mind. The air element is associated with the heart chakra. So here we're going to take a big deep breath in, feeling that expansion of the heart. Breathing as if you're breathing through and from your heart. Deep breath in. And hold and release. Come on down into your solar plexus, where we honor the direction of the south and the element of fire. And it's where we access the inner wisdom of the spirit, connecting to your own power center. Beautiful color of golden yellow, if you like. Feeling that expansion. Opening up to receive that which is just for you. Deep breath in. And hold and release. Come on down into your creative center, picturing your favorite color of orange, maybe a crystal or a flower, whatever works for you. Here we are honoring the direction of the west and the element of water and accessing the inner wisdom of the soul. I want you to make that connection to your creative flow and your energetic flow and take a deep breath in. And hold and release. And come on down into the root chakra to be here now. This is where we honor the direction of the north and the element of earth. And we access the inner wisdom of the body, which is going to be so important for this Capricorn cycle. We've been in a Gemini cycle, but very much in our head space. Now we're coming down into the body for the next year and a half. Deep breath in. And hold and release. So welcome, everyone. I'm so grateful for those of you interested in learning more about this rhythm. It has been a guiding force in my life since 1999, and I gotta say it does change the game once you connect with Venus. So before we get rolling, I gotta get a couple of things out of the way. Normally, I would do any promotional blah blah at the end of an audio, but because at the end of this one, we're going into story time and a drum journey, I don't want to mix it up with that. I want you to just float off into your own little zone, connected to your own guides and getting your own information once we're done. So I want you to know that the Venus reading and custom guide is something that will set you up yourself as an individual. It's customized with all your own information and it'll cover you for the whole cycle. It's got all your activations and it's got all the tools that we're going to work with in the monthly Venus circle. So it's optional for you to join the circle, but of course it's more fun when we do this together. And right now I have about 14 of you signed up, but my record with Capricorn is 33, so I'm still hoping a couple more will show up. The monthly circle is where we get together and go over the energies and the extra divinations and fun stuff that we're going to do each month to support ourselves as we navigate. And again, like I said, it's a community. Now, the beauty about the new cycle is that I'm on a teaching platform that integrates Zooms, so we are going to switch from conference calls to Zoom. And all the replays and everything, all our tools, everything's going to be in one place. So none of us have to worry about emails anymore. There's a community, there's a private community where we can also post about what we're going through and how it's going for us as we navigate together. So the Venus reading and custom guide is one way to go, and the monthly circle is another way to go. Most people do both, and I invite you to do both when you're called. So let's dive in. The Venus cycle. I love this one. Basically, she rules everything we care about, and there's a rhythm to our evolution where our values and priorities evolve in small personal ways every 18 months, and in even bigger ways every 8 years when she comes back to the very same place over and over again. Now, when we say that, I can tell you that her path through the sky, her actual path, is a geometrically perfect 5-pointed star. And so she is associated with the number 5, any 5-petaled flowers, things like that. So those 5 signs that she goes back to over and over again are Aries, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn, and Leo. And then it goes right back to Aries, to Scorpio, to Gemini, to Capricorn, to Leo. So what I've discovered in that rhythm, like I said, I've been at this since 99, following along. I started doing it with people in 2007. That's when the custom guide was born. It has evolved into something really wonderful. I'm excited about the new copy. They're always different, and we always do different things in there. But the cycle goes like this, the rhythm, I should say, is that we activate a new identity and purpose in Aries, which we last did in 2017. Before that was 2009. Then as we develop that new identity and purpose, she goes to retrograde in Scorpio, which happened in 2018. Last time was 2010. And we got access to new power, wisdom, and we learned a lot about what kind of karma we've created and how to clean that up, right? Then from the depths of Scorpio, we come up into Aries Gemini, where it's all ideas and concepts and possibilities and options and opportunities, which I can definitely testify has happened. 2020, last time was 2012. We're going to talk a little bit about why that was such an important cycle and why it preceded this time again in a really important way. But think about it. Now that we've been open to all these different ways of thinking and living and functioning, we get into Capricorn and it's like, hold up, we got to commit to something, ground something, create a container for your creative projects, whatever it may be. That's what our Capricorn theme is going to be all about. 22. Last time it did this was 2013. The final one will be Leo after this, because just imagine Capricorn is like the bones. We're going to create structures and foundations and protections and boundaries. We're going to work on a lot of different Capricorn issues, right? But when we get to Leo, it's going to be like, wait a minute, where's your authentic self? Where's the beauty? Where's the love? Where's the passion? Where's the fire and the vitality and the inspiration, right? So we're going to construct things over the next 18 months, including different relationships and partnerships. But then we're going to add our true essence to them in the next go round when she lingers in Leo. And it's going to be so powerful. But just imagine after Leo, it goes back to Aries and starts all over. And I always do the jump between those two, having to do with Leo wanting to love it and look a certain way and have that beauty and essence be out there for everyone to see. But Aries is like, bump all that. I just want to do it. Let's get busy. Let's get started. Let's get it going. It's energy and active, and it wants to be it more than it wants to look like it. So then we find that catch, and then it just starts all over again. And that's the 8-year rhythm. And what's really deep about that 8-year rhythm is I always let folks know, if you stay in anything, a job, a house, a community, and obviously relationships are at the top of the list for 8 years or more, it's time to renegotiate, no matter what. And we don't want to make anyone good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just time to renegotiate. So I'll tell you, for me, my husband is a Taurus. So I put him on this schedule 30 years ago, and he knows. But right now, we've only been married for 24. So this is our third 8-year cycle together. And let me tell you, it's a way bigger renegotiation at the 8-year mark than it is every 18 months. But what's beautiful is when we get on that rhythm, again, like I said, nobody's wrong. We can be honest and say, well, that used to turn me on, but it don't turn me on no more. So let's look at this a new way. Let's get present and let's honor what's going on here and now. And of course, Venus's domain is love, money, and magnetics is my little tagline all the time, because it's what we're attracted to or repelled by. So that's why I use magnetics all the time. And of course, the relationships and finances, the values and priorities we're always talking about with Venus, right? Well, she rules Taurus, which is an earth sign, and Libra, which is an air sign. So she covers a lot of ground, okay? In Taurus, she introduces us to the physical experience, right? the pleasure in the body, physical security and comfort. Your creature comforts are all tied up in Taurus, right? Food, sex, and money, your self-value and your worth, the value of beauty, strength, actual results. It's embodiment with Taurus, We want to have the experience. With Libra, it's air, it's more ideas. It's ideas and ideals. It's concepts, and it's a little hard to nail down because balance is a Libra concept. It's not something we can touch, but it's something we can experience. But it's also something that has to be constantly managed. Balance is not a static thing. It's constantly evolving and moving with what's going on. So here, some of you might have heard this before, but it's such a good list, and it does apply to Libra energy. We're calling in reciprocal relationships, profitable partnerships, creative collaborations, flourishing friendships, constructive communities, and kinship, harmony. Venus is associated with art and essence, right? Again, with the invisible. Think of how art or music or things that transcend language. We don't have to know what they're saying to feel what they're trying to convey. Okay, that's that kinship and connection between all humanity. So Venus has a lot to do with culture and the evolution of human consciousness, okay? And how we're all connected. And what's been happening in Western culture is they've been figuring it out little by little. I got these years and things from an article by Carl Kalaman. So anyone that wants the original article, I'm happy to share. But they started tracking the Venus cycle. Well, they didn't know they were tracking the Venus cycle. I'm going to put the Venus cycle on top of it as an overlay. In the 1500s, and this is just the records because we know the indigenous people have been working with Venus forever. We know this. But of course, Western culture is just catching up and just writing things down. So here we are. 1500s was the first circumnavigation of the globe. And when those people figured out the world is not flat and that humans are everywhere. Get the memo, okay? Nobody's discovering anything. But that was also a time where they realized we're connected in a bigger way than they were aware of, let's say. And then the 1600s was the first national mail service. National, meaning here in our nation. But again, it connected people, right? And all of a sudden we could do things and connect with people, write letters and be connected in ways we couldn't do before. The 1700s was the first international scientific collaboration to witness Venus crossing the sun. And I should have led with this. Her way bigger cycle is 113 to 130 years when she crosses in front of the sun. Now, in our lifetime, she just did that in 2004 and 2012. But it's every 130 years. So that's why I did 1500s, 1600s. The 1700s was the international collaboration. That meant that, if I remember correctly, there were 77 scientists that got together to witness Venus crossing the sun and talk about what it meant and all that kind of thing. It was coming on the radar for them. For me, I was blessed to be on the Big Island in 2012 with my shamanic astrology family and got to witness it. It was so powerful. Then the 1800s, we got the world post, telegraph, and telephone. Now we're even more connected. And then, like I said, 2004 to 2012, in our generation, we got the internet, which connected us all. And I am also suggesting that the next level is telepathy. So one of the other themes that also come up is that when she crosses the sun, every single time, she is in either Gemini or Sagittarius. So we know that those two energies have to do with our consciousness and the evolution of humanity in a certain way. And again, with how we're connected and what we believe to be true or possible and the ideas, thoughts, and, that human part of us, right? So she's all woven in there. So we can work with her for some of our collective goals, right? Our social collective goals is definitely Venus's domain. And I probably should have said this up front as well, that I'm going to cover, the general and how it feels to everybody. And then we're going to go a little bit more narrow on how it's going to feel to us as individuals and how we're going to navigate that. So with humans, we've always innately sought community and explored other cultures. Sometimes we feel like we're born to the wrong race or family of origin. Most of you know I grew up in a Black neighborhood. So I really identify with the Black culture a little bit more than my own, because in Washington, D.C. in the 60s and 70s, Black folks were running things. So we find and create a sense of belonging and kinship with others wherever we are, because humans need humans, I gotta tell you. This be quiet and go sit alone, we ain't built for that, and we're not gonna do it. So we have to find another way, and that's another thing that happens when Venus upgrades like this every 18 months, is we start to socialize, interact, and relate with each other in new and different ways. But you put it to the 8-year cycle, and it changes in even bigger ways, right? So we know it's definitely a time for a radical paradigm shift, especially post-2020, because now we've all been cracked open to thinking about home and work in completely different ways. Remember that connecting with beauty, this is why we always want to think of Venus, raises the vibe. If you're having a hard time, get out in nature. That's the quick connect right back to your heart. Remember that your heart is an electromagnetic organ. It connects you to the core of the earth and the protective field of the earth. So anytime you're feeling disconnected or unsettled in any way, deep breaths, breathing through and from your heart, reconnects you to your source. It's like we have a little umbilical cord to the core of the earth, and we can always tap the nutrient there when we need to. Free flowing with ideas, no agenda, no attachment to outcome. Okay, remember she's associated with the artist. So we want to always leave space for that, to renew our creative fire on a regular basis. Shadow Venus, and some of the things we might need to clear out this go round, would be neediness or needing outer validation, others to validate you, being other directed, over giving to the neglect of self, being disconnected, not in your heart, okay? Anything with love in your heart is going to be associated with Venus. And she insists that we stay connected. Isolating, self-imposed exile, not natural for us humans. Rushing development, not allowing and forcing, that's not the feminine way. That's not Venus's way. Valuing outer over inner, appearances versus substance, that's not her way either. Toxic mimics, we talk about this a lot in the Venus circle. We have gangs are a toxic mimic of community, Pornography is a toxic mimic of sensuality or sexuality. So we can fall for that if we're imbalanced or we're not well or we're not seeing things properly. We can settle, and Venus don't never want us to settle. That's another thing I always tell people. If Earth is our mama, who's fierce and loving and wonderful, but she means business, then Venus is our favorite auntie who loves us to pieces, believes in all our dreams, listens to us all the time for whatever we're going through, but never allows us to sell ourselves short. She always holds us to a higher standard because she believes in your potential. She knows what you can do, and she's going to hold you to it. So she's kind of that fierce auntie, like, nah, you can do better. Bring it on. Let's go. Let's raise the bar. We're going to be better. So we love to work with Venus. And I always remind people that Mars is about visible, do and make it happen. But Venus is the invisible, allow, invite, create space, magnetize, attract. That's the way all the, I know that it came out big in the 90s for all the manifestation talk, right? And The Secret and all that kind of thing. But the truth is, you connect to what you want, what you desire for yourself or your world, and you start creating space for it, it automatically magnetizes it in. So that's what we learn from Venus as well, is how to magnetize what we do want and repel what we don't want. So some questions to contemplate. What do you naturally magnetize in and radiate out? What are you naturally repelled by or attracted to? How do you share? How do you prefer to connect with others? Do you prefer to go deep, or do you prefer to keep it on a superficial level? Again, no judgment, no right or wrong. Just we have preferences, right? What's your preference? Everyone knows my preference is definitely deeper. I got 3 minutes of small talk and then I'm out the door. If we don't go to the soul, I'm out. What do you nurture, cultivate, love, as in the verb, actively love? That's all Venus's department. And when she retrogrades, we do a review and we figure out where we might be a little off. And that's why we're magnetizing things we don't want and repelling things we do. We have to adjust our system every now and then so that we can do better. And here we get to the energetic support, which is something I meant to announce earlier with the other executive decision, was to share the promotional things up front, and to let you know that the energetic support is in a separate recording, okay? Because there's so much there. I don't want to take up our time here with that, but I will do a quick once over. There's a special post that talks about what she's going to touch as she retrogrades November to March, and that's going to be Sun, Juno, and Pluto in an initiation, which means we're totally initiating the new identity and purpose as an individual with the Sun. That happens January 8th. She's connecting with Juno and Pluto. I don't have the dates in front of me. 3 times over in an initiatory way, we are birthing a new way of doing partnership, or like I said, relating with others, because Juno rules our partnership department, how we do it personally or professionally. But she's very tied to our intimate relationships, so we know that's going to be on the table as well. And Pluto's utter transformation. So you know my thing, when you change, everybody around you has to change or go away. It's the natural law. So that's all initiation in your Capricorn department. And this is happening to all of us, so it doesn't matter, your details. Right now, this is up in the sky happening to all of us. Then she's also going to sextile, which is an opportunity to gain some traction with Pallas and Neptune in Pisces. That means we can gain some traction with connecting to our own unique genius and our innate healing abilities and that connection to God or spirit or source energy, your imagination, again, getting super creative and artistic and imaginative with your problem solving, with your creative solutions. That's what we're going for with those two. They're really good at that. And again, thinking outside the box. This isn't going to be linear solutions, okay? So that's happening up in the sky. And again, I'm just going to do a quick once over because this is going to be in detail in another recording. But we also have eclipse energy, which is helping us break to realign. We're shifting out of Gemini Sag, which was very mental and stirred up the social collective. And now we have to get embodied. We have to get on the ground. We have to get organized in our real environments, not virtual environments. Got that? This is one of the things that I saw coming years before it became obvious. And that is the split between people in their real reality and their virtual reality. People were having meltdowns and calling me hysterical and needing readings to figure out what's going on. And that was the bottom line, that their virtual reality didn't match their real reality. So their soul was rebelling. This is not real. We are not computer beings. We're not avatars. We're real people and we need real exchanges. And so we want virtual to stay in its place. We want technology to be the tool it was designed to be, to assist, not to run things, okay? I'm not into smartphones or smart computers. I'm not having it. But this is the reset. We're coming out of that consciousness into our bodies. And the biggest one that is happening around our portal, well, 2 things. One is the big Saturn square Uranus deal, which has been happening throughout 2021, which is kind of making us deal with what aspects of the old and traditional are worthy and solid and, like we said earlier, worth restoring and maintaining, right? And what is so worn out that we got to go radically new. That's Aquarius. Now, the deep thing is the last time they square every 20 years, but the last time was 99-2000 and they were reversed. So just imagine Uranus was in its home sign of Aquarius. 99 is pretty much when I got my first home computer in 96. So that is when that started happening. When Uranus was in Aquarius in its home sign, technology just blew up. But Saturn was in the body. And we found out literally what was up with that. Now it's reversed. Saturn's in Aquarius and opening up possibilities for our future reality, while Uranus is in Taurus, rewiring our electrical system in our bodies, because Earth's vibratory frequency has more than doubled in recent years. And we are connected to her. And in order to handle that upgrade of frequency, we have to lighten up in our bodies and do things a different way. So this is all kind of underlying and wrapping around and holding us as we navigate this initiation. So personally, what's going to happen is the Venus cycle itself has 4 segments. The first segment is when she retrogrades and activates the whole new cycle. We consider that an underworld because she links up with the sun and it's too bright to see her. She disappears from the sky. Right now, she is still visible low on the horizon, but she's about to disappear. And I'm guessing that our zone is around January 5th to the 20th is going to be the underworld phase. And then it kicks off with our 9 months of release work, and she'll be the morning star. Then she has a 60 to 90 day underworld at the midpoint, which for us will fall in October of 2022. And then she, again, disappears from the sky, gets with the sun for a lengthy time that time, and we really reorganize things and come back for reclamation. And she comes back as the evening star. So we are all born in one of those segments of the cycle. You'll know that you were in one of the underworld phases if your Sun and Venus are conjunct or close together, which a lot of people are. But it's just a question of which underworld, right? All four break down according to the elements, and we'll talk about that in your personal reading and like where you were born and the phase and the archetype that guides you. But essentially at this point, I want you all to just clarify some goals on the front end that you'd like to check in on in 9 months and have completed in 18. Okay? And the goals, you need to have at least one tangible and one essence goal. Tangible meaning something you can measure and develop as you go consciously. The essence goal is kind of how you want to feel, what you want to look like, where, what kind of essence do you want to experience by the end of this cycle, okay? We're going to definitely review our commitments and their current value and priority. Again, renegotiation time, no matter how you slice it. Let's not make anybody good, bad, right, or wrong. Let's just renegotiate, okay? Not a problem. You want to review your resources, reallocate, simplify, prepare for the future in a certain kind of way, especially because of the Capricorn theme, okay? It's all about your reality and purpose and your roles and responsibilities that have essentially run their course either in the last 18 months or 8 years, whichever way you're looking at it. It's important that you recognize the last time you went through this, like I said, was 2013. So another way that I describe that is think of the opening that we all experienced in 2012. Basically, the Earth was the farthest from the sun we can be. We were furthest out in the darkness that we could ever be. And ever since then, we've been moving back toward the light, okay? But think of the cracking open 2012 was and what followed it. What happened in 2013 and 14 for you? What did you ground? What did you make real? What was your purpose? What were you known for? And how do you want that to evolve and change here and now today? Now, before we get to story time and some of the good stuff, I want to talk about what we're going to do monthly in the Venus Circle. Now, I did opt for a conference call for the introduction, but we are going to be getting together on Zoom. So that's another thing I wanted to correct because Zoom integrates with my teaching platform and everything's just all in there. So we all just have to log in to play in that zone. And it'll be where your tools and notes and resources, because we always gather resources. With every cycle, there's different resources that come about as needed. We'll have a place for that. And of course, I'm so excited because this is the first time we have a real community to chit chat in. And most of you know I don't like third parties, so I don't chit chat on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that. That's not my thing. I like the direct connect. I would sooner give you my phone number to text me than I would to chat with you on there. So this is my container. No one else is running this container. You have any issues, you can come to me. The beautiful thing about the platform is that they do have excellent customer service. So if you're having any trouble navigating it, they're very helpful in that way as well. And I'm still learning it, so I'm not exactly the expert. But it's been very supportive. I've done a few practice runs. I did the Astro 101 class in there. I did the Mercury retrograde classes in there. I'm going to set those up for the new year again. It's been wonderful. But for us, we are going to have different support than we had last go round. For those of you repeating the course, a lot of people do. Sometimes they do 2 or 3 in a row and then take a break, or they do the ones where the signs are really important to them. It changes. People's motivation is always different. Also, our inspiration. I like to mix it up. And so last time we did archetypes and stories, and the stories were so popular, but we did a different one every month. This time we're going to have 2 guiding stories. We're going to have one story guiding the release work. That's what we're going to do tonight. And we're going to have one story guiding the reclamation work, and we'll do that one in October. There's going to be some new archetypes to play with because we had some different signs activated. Every cycle is unique, y'all. So that's why I like to mix it up with that. I did say that our overall archetype is going to be the engineer because that to me is very Capricorn. So we're releasing shadow Capricorn, any manipulation, lying, or cheating. playing politics, being complicit or lacking integrity in your dealings, disregard for consequences, lack of individual forethought or proper pre-planning, disconnect from core or lack of personal structure. We're cleaning all this up. Any aspects of this we might be going through or witnessing in others, we got to just be prepared for. Selfishness, self-destructiveness, and lack of self-worth or value. Recklessness, total disregard for the value of life or property. Disorganized thinking that leads to poor choices. Scatteredness and overwhelm. Inner confusion and outer chaos. Narrow-mindedness, rigidity, and limited dogmatic beliefs. Unreliable with others, and the inability to keep your word to yourself. We're calling in the engineer that has excellent problem-solving skills and creative solutions. That's ultimately where we want to end up with this. Responsible, meaning able to respond when called to contribute. This is light and positive Capricorn in the inner engineer when it's at its peak. Creative, critical thinker and can improvise and think on your feet. Ability to make things work and make a way out of no way. Offers solutions that are always useful, relevant, and practical. We all have Capricorn somewhere. This is where this all kicks in. Owns their inner authority and takes responsibility for choices. Visionary, designer, engineer, and creator creatrix of dreams. Okay, so Capricorn is our part of our reality and purpose. We're creating with that, Clear on value priorities and willing to commit for the long term. That's something else that's going to go down this cycle. Ingenuity, dedication, and the practical application of principles. Logic, structure, and dealing with reality and current resources. Okay, we're going to get real. The picture in the book says, meet your inner engineer as you survey the present, clear the past, and prepare for the future. Ultimately, that's going to be our goal with the Capricorn theme. Then we have two more archetypes that are going to guide the release and reclamation. The release side, we're letting go of slave. This is January 8th activation is our archetype for that first one where she meets up with the sun, because she only meets up with the sun twice in the whole 18-month cycle. Now in January and again in October, and that's it. And those are both the activations where we look in on our public self, our public persona, and what we're known for in the world. And so we don't want to be a slave to corporate global domination madness that's run amok, right? We're getting out of that. And so it says, meet your inner slave as you release the chains of old roles and responsibilities. We're going to release powerlessness, futility, and giving up without trying. Living in extreme conditions like famine, violence, or exile. We're going to stop creating more karma to clean, clear, and release. We're going to honor the dark night of the souls and the other losses and deaths rather than bury them. We need more grief protocols. That's going to be some other classes I'll teach down the road. Victim consciousness, following and giving away your power. Done, again with Shadow Capricorn. Ignorance, paralyzing fear, and personal desperation. Okay, deep breath. Lack of self-respect and inability to stand up for self or goals. Debilitating rage, suffering, and indiscriminate reactions rather than conscious responses, right? Debilitating rage. Remember, rage to outrage. Rage is paralyzing. Outrage is mobilizing. You're so upset you want to do something about it. Living in survival mode and feeling oppressed by the basic fundamentals of life. Okay, out of here. We were not put on this earth to live that way. Okay, survival mode has got to stop. Then on our reclamation side, we get to meet the inner advocate as you learn to stand in the truth of your own journey. Deep breath. Balanced thought and impartial decision making for yourself. We're calling it in. On the reclamation side, we're going to get to reclaim all this, specifically because we let go of the old chains. We got rid of them. Sovereignty, independence, freedom, and authenticity. Love, value, self-respect, and compassion for others. Natural leadership qualities that support and protect life. Conscious contracts, creative collaborations, and constructive communities. Guess I got to add conscious contracts to this. Justice, fairness, reciprocity, and conscious equal partnership. Remember, the reclamation side kicks off with Libra. Ability to commit, take action, and lead by example. Cultivation of balanced power and sharing of resources. Deep breath. Ability to cultivate beauty, harmony, and win-win situations. and the natural ability to negotiate and mediate complex circumstances, because that's what being a human on earth is. It's very complex. They try to dumb us down and simplify certain things, but part of us is not able to do that. Our soul is very deep. So those are our archetypes kicking it off. Now we have a different archetype every month that will guide us with different signs and different energies and the different chakras. So that's the only thing that stays the same, is that we honor the sign and the chakra. In my circle, we do 9 months of release and 9 months of reclamation. So we have the 7 primary chakras, but we also add in the Earth Star chakra, which connects us to the core, and the Soul Star chakra that connects our crown to the cosmos. So that is our links above and below. And it gives us our 9 months for the cycle. The other thing is we start at the root and end at the root, because anything we're letting go of, we want to pull from the root. And anything we want to bring into form, we're going to bring it back down and ground at the root. So in January, we have the inner and outer initiation, and then we kick off the root chakra and come all the way up, releasing, till we get to the crown, and the soul star is the midpoint, and we're clean and ready to reclaim and bring back in. So this is a powerful rhythm to co-create with. And I gotta say, it definitely improves your relationships and finances when you move through this energy consciously. The other thing we're gonna have month by month is on the release side. Like I said, we have one story guiding each 9-month leg of the journey. On the release side, we're doing the red shoes, which is from the chapter about self-preservation. And we're going to release 9 traps that are part of that chapter. And then on the reclamation side, we have tasks to reclaim. And the story will be Vasilisa the Wise, which is about retrieval of intuition as initiation. Because by then, we're going to be initiated into our own values and priorities, to our own intuition and psychic inner knowing and clarity and clear seeing. And we're going to be much more aware of our tools and powers and gifts and strengths that can counterbalance the negativity and challenges that we go through. The other things that are going to be different is we used to use the Tarot of the Spirit cards by Pamela Eakins. Now we're going to use the Vision Quest Tarot by Guy and Sylvie Winter and Joe Dosé. And I've got a new addition, because one of the things I really want to do is help us all branch out in our consciousness to honor other cultures. You know, America is having its first Pluto return. When I looked it up, I think England's had 7. Ethiopia's had the most. They've had like 15. They're the only country that's been a country this long. And that means every 250 years. So this is only our first one. We're a baby country. We're an experiment about freedom and choice and free will and being sovereign and running our own lives. And I bring this up because it happens in Capricorn for the US. And it occurred to me how important this particular Venus cycle is going to be to navigate the social collective realms. Like, this is going to be your support system over the 2 years that America goes through this mess. And even though I do have international, I've got people from India, the Philippines, the UK, Mexico, Costa Rica, all over the world. Unfortunately, America's tentacles reach out so far that others are affected by our choices here. So I think this go-round is going to be even deeper than 2013 was because of what we're going through on the social collective basis. So I've asked the Ancestor Spirit Oracle cards to support us as we navigate. They're by Jade Sky, and they're so rich and wonderful that we're going to lead with those because I wanted to share them on this audio just because it's a new tarot deck. I think a lot of you are familiar with the Vision Quest Tarot. But this one, my yay told me to get, so I was on it. And of course, everything she recommends is pretty amazing and rich and deep. So for our release side, which kicks off in Capricorn, we got psychic strength. Keywords are shield, talismans, gold light. This says the early Berber people lived in northwestern Africa from around 10,000 BC, and perhaps longer. They lived in large nomadic tribes and over many centuries migrated, expanded, and came into contact with many other cultures. The Berbers were well-known traders who transported goods by camel caravan from the Sahara Desert to Morocco and beyond. Today, they live mainly in North Africa. The Berbers of Morocco believe in spirits called jinns that can act like humans and take on different forms, such as that of an animal. People might call on an evil jinn to harm an enemy. The shape of a hand, often with an eye at the center of the palm, is called the hamsa, which is incorporated into jewelry and wall hangings for protection against jinns or other forms of black magic. Deep breath. The ancestors speak. When you are feeling drained or vulnerable, you can shield yourself psychically and emotionally. This card encourages you to look after yourself by setting firm boundaries. Remember, this is our guidance for the release side. So even if you don't join us, you're all set. Remain unattached to comments or attitudes that are unhelpful. Put out a hand for help where possible and surround yourself with positive energy. Staying focused on your goals and your loves will bring strength. Deep breath. The divine meaning says there are many ways to strengthen your spiritual energy, which is what we're going to have to do throughout this release work. Find a way that works for you. You may like to use a hamsa, that symbol of protection, or make a talisman. For a quick and easy way to shield yourself, ground your energy, take a few deep breaths, and imagine a golden bubble of healing light surrounding you. Once you can see yourself inside the gold bubble, ask the universe to protect you. Shield yourself with love and positivity and extend that protection to your loved ones as well. Deep breath. The cards will be included in your notes so you'll see how beautiful they are on top of it. The art is by Belinda Morris. Then for our reclamation, remember, guided by Libra, we got family connection, which is keywords are respect, people, and kinship. Because on the backside, once we establish our own boundaries and roles and responsibilities, interacting with others is going to be so much richer and juicier and more balanced and reciprocal. So the early Samoan people believed that the supreme ruler and creator of the universe created their people out of the earth. Samoan culture is about communal living. According to the Samoan way, the most important aspects of life are family, faith, and music. I love it. I always tell you all, music and comedy to counterbalance this negativity and weirdness. Traditionally, the elders in the family hold the highest status in the community, and the extended family live and work together. Most daily activities are attended to in groups. Everything is about the family rather than the individual, including sharing food and living space. The traditional houses didn't have walls, and sometimes up to 20 people slept together on the ground in one of them. In others, family members congregate to relax, chat, and socialize. Deep breath. The ancestors speak. It's time to reconnect with your family, which, like I said earlier, might not be your biological family. You don't need to live with or spend a lot of time with them like the Samoans do, but perhaps you could call or visit a family member. Your quote-unquote family doesn't have to be biological. They could be your adopted family or friends. Sometimes our biological families are no longer part of our lives, and that is okay. It's important to create your own family in whatever way suits you. You may even view your pets as your furry children or family. This card can also be a sign that family members, past or living, are trying to contact you. Deep breath. The divine meaning says, this card can appear where unresolved negative feelings are associated with a family member. This is a prompt that it is now time to heal. Try not to carry around the pain from your past anymore. Do not feel guilty for wanting to move forward in your life. You may need to distance yourself from the energy of a family member, and that is okay. Look after yourself. Focus on surrounding yourself with people who love, honor, and treat you with the respect you deserve. Deep breath. And you know another Kellyism, self-preservation is not selfish, it is essential. So Capricorn ain't got no trouble with that. Self-preservation is natural for our Capricorn side of things. So as we clean up and clear out, we'll be able to do that better when we get to the Libra side and we're dealing with people in a new way. Or we want to magnetize new people into our world. Or remember to have your higher self filter everything first. That way certain silliness doesn't even get into your field, right? Into your energetic field. Okay, everyone, open to receive. With deep breath, we're going in for story time, which, like I said, was pretty popular. Everyone loves a good story. Now, here's the other thing that changes this go-round is, like I said, last time we used a different story for every month. These two guiding stories that were chosen for this go-round are coming out of Women Who Run with the Wolves. Now, most of you know I love Kathy Pagano's book, Wisdom's Daughters, How Women Can Change the World, and that's what we used for some of our stories, and they were wonderful. But I'm praying that she's going to do a class with that book. So I thought I would put it aside for a minute in case we can crack it open a different way and have her with us, which would be really fun. Stay tuned. I might talk her into it. Meantime, Clarissa Pinkola Estes wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves, and it has been my Bible since 1990, which was the year my mother died. So it was what saved me during just basically the worst time in my life. And I have an original printing. I have one of the first printings. I'm so excited, and hardback and everything. It's in pieces because I wore that sucker out. But I love this. And this story was so perfect for releasing negative Capricorn because now, keep in mind, again with that Pluto in Capricorn, digging it up, it's all the toxicity of our corporations, the dysfunction of our healthcare and educational systems. It's all the big systems that serve great numbers of people. Between the pharmaceuticals and the food, they've got us all out our natural rhythms and out our natural mind, and it's not cool. So because of the Break to Realign 2020 afforded us, I'm going deep with this one to reset ourselves for ourselves so that we can navigate with more independence and sovereignty. That's going to be so important during this changeover because right now we're witnessing the crumble, but it's still going to take time to rebuild. Meantime, we only got so many years on the planet, so we need to do what we can do for our own energy and karma and DNA and the last 7 generations and the next 7 generations. I really believe whatever healing and wholeness work you can do unlocks things backwards and forwards for your DNA ancestors, your affinity ancestors, which are just who you really resonate with on a deep level, or the long line all the way back to Africa, okay? So deep breath, open to that which is just for you. We're going to honor story time, and then after that, we'll do an 8-minute drum journey. Relax, relax, relax. Chapter 8, Self-Preservation, Identifying Leg Traps, Cages, and Poison Bait. Deep breath. That would be corporate, corporate, corporate. It's a trap, it's a cage, and it's a poison bait. Trust. We start with the feral woman. In the Oxford English Dictionary, the word feral derives from Latin fer, meaning wild beast. In common usage, a feral creature is one who was once wild, then domesticated, and who has reverted back to a natural or untamed state once again. I postulate the feral woman as one who was once in a natural psychic state, that is, in her rightful wild mind, then later captured by whatever turn of events, thereby becoming overly domesticated and deadened in proper instincts. Deep breath. We've been disconnected through food and pharmaceuticals. When she has opportunity to return to her original wildish nature, she too easily steps into all manner of traps and poisons. Because her cycles and protective systems have been tampered with, she is at risk in what used to be her natural wild state. No longer wary and alert, she easily becomes prey. There is a specific pattern to the loss of instinct. It is essential to study this pattern, to actually memorize it, so that we can guard the treasures of our basic natures and those of our daughters as well. Deep breath. In the psychic woods, there are many leg traps made of rusted iron that lie just below the leafy green of the forest floor. Psychologically, the same is true for the greater world. There are various lures to which we are susceptible. Relationships, people, and ventures that are tempting, but inside that good-looking bait is something sharpened to a point, something that kills our spirit as soon as we bite into it. Feral women of all ages, and especially the young, have a tremendous drive to compensate for long famines and exiles. They are endangered by excessive and mindless striving toward people and goals that are not nurturing, substantial, or enduring. No matter where they live or in what time, there are cages waiting, always. Too small lives into which women can be lured or pushed. If you have ever been captured, if you have ever endured hambre del alma, a starvation of the soul, If you have ever been trapped, and especially if you have a drive to create, it is likely that you have been or are a feral woman. The feral woman is usually extremely hungry for something soulful and often will take any poison disguised on a pointy stick, believing it to be the thing for which her soul hungers. Though some feral women veer away from traps at the last moment with only minor losses of fur, far more stumble into them unwittingly, knocked temporarily senseless, while others are broken by them. And still others manage to disentangle themselves and drag themselves off to a cave to nurse their injuries alone. Deep breath. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. In order to avoid these snares and enticements that are tripped by a woman's time spent in capture and famine, we must be able to see them in advance and sidestep them. We have to redevelop insight and caution. We have to learn to veer. To be able to see the right turns, we have to be able to see the wrong ones. Deep breath. There is what I believe to be the remnants of an old woman's teaching tale that explains the plight of the starved and feral woman. It's variously known by the devil's dancing shoes, the red hot shoes. Here we're going to call it the red shoes. The following is a Magyar Germanic version of the red shoes that my Aunt Teresa used to tell us when we were children. This is Clarissa, one that I use here with her blessing. In her artful way, she always began the tale by saying, "Look at your shoes and be thankful they are plain, for one has to live very carefully if one's shoes are too red." Deep breath. The red shoes. Once there was a poor motherless child who had no shoes. But the child saved cloth scraps wherever she found them, and over time sewed herself a pair of red shoes. They were crude, but she loved them. They made her feel rich, even though her days were spent gathering food in the thorny woods until far past dark. But one day, as she trudged down the road in her rags and her red shoes, a gilded carriage pulled up beside her. Inside was an old woman who told her she was going to take her home and treat her as her own little daughter. So to the wealthy old woman's house they went, where the child's hair was cleaned and combed. She was given pure white undergarments and a fine wool dress with white stockings and shiny black shoes. When the child asked after her old clothes, and especially her red shoes, the old woman said the clothes were so filthy and the shoes so ridiculous that she had them thrown into the fire where they were burnt to ashes. The child was very sad, for even with all the riches surrounding her, the humble red shoes made by her own hands had given her the greatest happiness. Now she was made to sit still all the time, to walk without skipping, and to not speak unless spoken to. But a secret fire began to burn in her heart, and she continued to yearn for her old red shoes more than anything. As the child was old enough to be confirmed on the day of the innocents, the old woman took her to an old crippled shoemaker to have a special pair of shoes made for the occasion. In the shoemaker's case there stood a pair of red shoes made of the finest leather that were finer than fine. They practically glowed. So even though the red shoes were scandalous for church, the child, who chose only with her hungry heart, picked the red shoes. The old lady's eyesight was so poor she could not see the color of the shoes and so paid for them. The old shoemaker winked at the child and wrapped them up. The next day, the church members were agog over the shoes on the child's feet. The red shoes shone like burnished apples, like hearts, like red-washed plums. Everyone stared, even the icons on the wall. Even the statues stared disapprovingly at her shoes. But she loved the shoes all the more. So when the pontiff intoned, the choir hummed, the organ pumped, the child thought nothing more beautiful than her red shoes. By the end of the day, the old woman had been informed about the ward's red shoes. "Never, never wear those red shoes again," the woman threatened. But the next Sunday, the child couldn't help but choose the red shoes over the black ones, and she and the old woman walked to church as usual. At the door of the church was an old soldier with his arm in a sling. He wore a little jacket and had a red beard. He bowed and asked permission to brush the dust from the child's shoes. The child put out her foot and he tapped the soles of her shoes with a little song that made the soles of her feet itch. "Remember to stay for the dance," he smiled and winked at her. Again, everyone looked at the girl's red shoes, but she so loved the shoes that were bright like crimson, bright like raspberries, bright like pomegranates, that she could hardly think of anything else, hardly hear the service at all. So busy was she turning her feet this way and that, admiring her red shoes, that she forgot to sing. As she and the old woman left the church, the injured soldier called out, "What beautiful dancing shoes!" His words made the girl take a few little twirls right there and then. But once her feet had begun to move, they would not stop. And she danced through the flower beds and around the corner of the church until it seemed as though she had lost complete control of herself. She danced different dances all the way down the street, then waltzed by herself through the fields across the way. The old woman's coachman jumped up from his bench and ran after the girl, picked her up and carried her back to the carriage. But the girl's feet in the red shoes were still dancing in the air as though they were still on the ground. The old woman and the coachman tugged and pulled, trying to pry the red shoes off. It was such a sight, all hats askew and kicking legs, but at last the child's feet were calm. Back home, the old woman slammed the red shoes down on a high shelf and warned the girl never to touch them again. But the girl could not help looking up at them and longing for them. To her, they were still the most beautiful things on the face of the earth. Not long after, as fate would have it, the old woman became bedridden, and as soon as her doctors left, the girl crept into the room where the shoes were kept. She glanced up at them so high on the shelf. Her glance became a gaze, and her gaze became a powerful desire. So much so that the girl took the shoes from the shelf and fastened them on, feeling that it would do no harm. But as soon as they touched her heels and toes, she was overcome by the urge to dance. And so out the door she danced, and down the steps. Many, many dances led to the big daring waltz turns in rapid succession. The girl was in her glory and did not realize she was in trouble until she wanted to dance left and the shoes insisted on dancing to the right. When she wanted to dance round, the shoes insisted on dancing straight ahead. And as the shoes danced the girl, rather than the other way around, they danced her right down the road, through the muddy fields and out into the dark, gloomy forest. There, against a tree, was the old soldier with a red beard, his arm in a sling and dressed in his little jacket. "Oh my," he said, "what beautiful dancing shoes." Terrified, she tried to pull the shoes off, but as much as she tugged, the shoes stayed on. She hopped on one foot and then the other, trying to take off the shoes. But her one foot on the ground kept dancing even so, and her other foot in her hand did its part of the dance also. And so dance and dance and dance she did, over the highest hills and through the valleys, in the rain and in the snow and in the sunlight. She danced. She danced in the darkest night and through sunrise, and she was still dancing in twilight as well. But it was not good dancing. It was terrible dancing, and there was no rest for her. She danced into a churchyard, and there a spirit of dread would not allow her to enter. The spirit pronounced these words over her: "You shall dance in your red shoes until you become like a wraith, like a ghost, till your skin hangs from your bones, till there is nothing left of you but entrails dancing. You shall dance door to door through the villages, and you shall strike each door 3 times, and when people peer out, they will see you and fear your fate for themselves. Dance, red shoes, you shall dance." The girl begged for mercy, but before she could plead further, her red shoes carried her away. Over the briars she danced, through the streams, over the hedgerows, and on, dancing, still dancing, till she came to her old home. And there were mourners. The old woman who had taken her in had died. Yet even so she danced on by, and dance she did, as dance she must. In abject exhaustion and horror, she danced into a forest where lived the town's executioner. The axe on his wall began to tremble as soon as it sensed her coming near. "Please," she begged the executioner as she danced by his door, "please cut off my shoes to free me from this horrid fate." The executioner cut through the straps of the red shoes with his axe, but still the shoes stayed on her feet. And so she cried to him that her life was worth nothing and that he could cut off her feet. So he cut off her feet. And the red shoes, with the feet still in them, danced through the forest, over the hill, and out of sight. And now the girl was a poor cripple and had to find her own way in the world as a servant to others, and she never ever again wished for red shoes. Deep breath. Brutal loss in fairy tales. It is more than reasonable to ask why there are such brutal episodes in fairy tales. It is a phenomenon found worldwide in mythos and folklore. The gruesome conclusion to this tale is typical of fairy tale endings, wherein the spiritual protagonist is unable to complete an attempted transformation. Psychologically, the brutal episode communicates an imperative psychic truth. This truth is so urgent and yet so easily disregarded by saying, "Oh, I do understand," but then go traipsing off to one's doom anyway, that we are unlikely to heed the alarm if it is stated in lesser terms. Deep breath. In the modern technological world, the brutal episodes of fairy tales have been replaced by images in television commercials, such as those showing a family snapshot with one member blotted out and a trail of blood over the photograph to show what happens when a person drives drunk, or attempting to dissuade people from using illegal drugs by showing an egg bubbling in a frying pan and pointing out that this is what happens to the brain on drugs. The brutal motif is an ancient way of causing the emotive self to pay attention to the very serious message. The psychological truth in the red shoes is that a woman's meaningful life can be pried, threatened, robbed, or seduced away from her unless she holds on to or retrieves her basic joy and wild worth. We need to retrieve our basic joy and wild worth. Not corporate worth, not job worth, not family worth, but our wild worth. Natural, innate. The tale calls our attention to traps and poisons we too easily take onto ourselves when we are caught in a famine of wild soul. Without a firm participation with the wild nature, a woman starves and falls into obsession of quote-unquote feel-betters, leave me alones, or love me please. Feel-betters, leave me alones, or love me please. This is what happens when we fall into obsession. When she is starved, a woman will take any substitutes offered, including those that, like dead placebos, do absolutely nothing for her, as well as destructive and life-threatening ones that hideously waste her time and talents or expose her life to physical danger. It is a famine of the soul that makes a woman choose things that will cause her to dance madly out of control, then too near the executioner's door. So in order to understand this tale further, we have to see how a woman can so drastically lose her way by losing her instinctual and wild life. The way to hold on to what we have, the way to find our way back to the wild feminine, is to see what mistakes a woman so trapped can make. Then we can backtrack and repair. Then we can have reunion. Deep breath. As we shall see, the loss of the handmade red shoes represents the loss of a woman's self-designed life and passionate vitality, and the taking on of a too tame life. This eventually leads to loss of accurate perception, which leads to excess, which leads to the loss of the feet, the platform on which we stand, our base, a deep part of our instinctual nature that supports our freedom. Deep breath. Let's be nice to our feet, y'all. The red shoes shows us how a deterioration begins and what state we come to if we make no intervention on our own wildish behalf. Let there be no mistake. When a woman makes efforts to intervene and fight her demon, whatever that demon may be, it is one of the most worthy battles known, both archetypally and in consensual reality. Even though she might, as in the tale, hit ground zero -5, the bottom, via famine, capture, injured instinct, destructive choices, and all the rest, remember, at bottom is where the living roots of psyche are. It is there that a woman's wild underpinnings are. At bottom is the best soil to sow and grow something new again. In that sense, hitting bottom, while extremely painful, is also sowing new ground. Deep breath. Though we would never wish the poisonous red shoes and the subsequent decrease of life onto ourselves or others, there is in its fiery and destructive center a something that fuses fierceness to wisdom in the woman. A something that fuses fierceness to wisdom in the woman who has danced the cursed dance, who has lost herself and her creative life, who has driven herself to hell in a cheap or even an expensive handbasket, and yet who has somehow held on to a word, a thought, an idea, until she could escape her demon through a crack in time and live to tell about it. Deep breath. We want to fuse fierceness to wisdom again. This is a woman's natural state and what scares the hell out of patriarchy. So the woman who has danced out of control, who has lost her footing and lost her feet and understands that bereft state at the end of the fairy tale, has a special and valuable wisdom. She is like a saguaro, a fine and beautiful cactus that lives in the desert. They can be shot full of holes, carved up, knocked over, stepped on, and still they live. Still they store life-giving water. Still they grow wild and repair themselves over time. Deep breath. We are regenerative creatures. Takes us a little longer than a gecko to grow a tail back, but we can do it. We can do it too. Though fairy tales end after 10 pages, our lives do not. We are multi-volume sets. In our lives, even though one episode amounts to a crash and burn, there is always another episode awaiting us, and then another. There are always more opportunities to get it right, to fashion our lives in the ways we deserve to have them. Don't waste your time hating failure. Failure is a greater teacher than success. So listen, learn, and go on. That is what we are doing with this tale. We are listening to its ancient message. We are learning about the deterioration of patterns so we can go on with the strength of one who can sense the traps and cages and baits before we are upon them or caught in them. Let us begin to unravel this very important tale by understanding what happens when the vital life that we value most, no matter what it might look like to others, the life we love the most, is devalued and turned to ashes, like her red shoes. So deep breath. We are releasing all of this so that we can step up and step out and step in all new ways. It's such a powerful story. And then begins the traps. So I will say that this one has 8 traps. We're going to use the first one in 2 different ways for our outer initiation and our inner initiation. Because what happens is it happens in different ways for us publicly or privately. So we're going to go over that, and then the rest will fall in line to match our structure. So now let's go into our drum journey so that you can assimilate some of that. Let go of the monkey mind and trying to process it yourself, and open to receive a message or some wisdom or some medicine from your guides. Okay, I want you to go to your happy place in nature. So if you've never done shamanic journey before, we usually ask that a special guide, someone you work with the most, stands at the portal as we go into liminal space. So the easiest way to do that is to imagine yourself in a nature spot that you know and that you're familiar with, that you can get to really easily. Some of you that have been with me before know that I have Ruby Red Wolf. She stands at the portal for me. And imagine that you are sliding down a rabbit hole and coming out in your nature space, or diving into water and swimming through a cave and coming up into your nature space, however you get there. Maybe on the wings of an eagle, flying on one of your big birds. But go there. This is a place where it's pure nature, pristine and clean and whole. Nothing but animals and trees and flowers and nature herself. No humans, no industry, no technology. Ease and grace. And when we go to this place, we find someplace really comfortable to sit and pause while we wait for our guides to show up. We invite them to bring what we need this moment, this time, for this Venus retrograde specifically, how you're going to be rewired and what needs an upgrade so that you can function better. Like I said, you might just get a word or a picture, something really simple that may or may not make sense at this moment. Trust that it will be revealed. It always is. Those of us that do it all the time have those experiences all the time. So the more you practice, the more clarity you get, and the easier it gets to drop in to liminal space, no matter what's going on around you, right? So deep breath. We're going to go in for about 7-8 minutes. That's your call back. And we offer gratitude to whoever showed up. If no one showed up, that's okay. You give gratitude anyway. You can make an offering of cornmeal or tobacco. If you don't have anything, you can use a lock of hair or a rock or a shell or something you picked up in your nature place to just say thank you for this space to breathe, to come into your own, to come back to your center. Sometimes these journeys are really rich. Sometimes they're very quiet. If you need to come back, the drum track will be available. And I am so grateful for everyone interested in navigating this cycle consciously, and for those of you who drop in to do it with us along the way, in the live circle, on the new teaching platform with a private community. I'm so excited. I encourage you to get your reading and custom guide, or at least drop in. All right, everyone. Be well. Deep bow of gratitude to each of you for showing up for yourself and for the world. One love.